Gut health, gut bacteria, something that you hear people talking about a lot. That every brand is doing something regarding gut health and gut bacteria right now. And I think people have started to understand that gut health is something we probably want to start to educate ourselves about. But other than drinking Yakult, other brands are available. Most people aren't really sure why it's important to look after our gut health. So today I'm going to break it down for you and explain what goes on in your gut, why it's important, and I'm going to strip it back. We're going to get rid of all the kind of complicated terminology because it's extremely complicated and make it as simple as possible so you can leave this video with a decent understanding of why it's important to look after your gut and how you can start looking after your gut today. Let's start by jumping back 2,500 years where Greek philosopher Hippocrates hypothesized, that's a lot of words, that all disease starts in the gut. And I don't believe this is exactly the case, but there certainly seems to be some truth here. So when I'm referring to the gut today, I'm talking about everything from this entrance hole to this exit hole and all the tissues that come into contact with them. And your gut really does influence a lot of your body. It has its own nervous system called the enteric nervous system, and it has a very kind of important link with the brain, something that we call the gut-brain axis, and they both influence each other. For example, if you get very stressed or you're in a high intensity situation, sometimes people find they need to go to the loo. And conversely, around 80%, 90% of your serotonin is found in your gut. This is your happy hormone, and that obviously impacts your brain and how you feel on a day-to-day basis. So we already know from the very first thing that our gut will impact our moods and how we feel. So let's jump to the gut microbiome. And this basically means the environment inside your gut. Your gut holds literally pounds of gut bacteria. And it's a symbiotic relationship, means we cannot live without our gut bacteria. It's a bit like Venom and Tom Hardy. Venom cannot live without Tom Hardy. So Tom Hardy is our gut bacteria and we are Venom. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to... If you haven't watched any Marvel movies, come on, freshen yourselves up and get used to them and you'll understand that analogy. Anyway, our gut is host to a multitude of different strands of gut bacteria. So when products are being sold to you, they're often strains of what we call healthy gut bacteria, which will populate your gut. Now, whether these can actually survive and get through your stomach acid to your gut will actually depend on how advantageous a certain product is. For example, every time you take a mouthful of food, that mouthful of food will have certain bacteria or pathogens on that. And they will kind of go through your esophagus, they'll do their system, they'll go into your stomach acid where a lot of them will be killed off. Some of them will make their way into your gut. And at this point is where two things happen. Either the body will destroy them or they will take up residence. And they can be very, very stingy, and they can create a thing called a biofilm that protects themselves, and we can start to get, through poor diet, disease and bad life choices, we can start to create a dysbiosis in our gut. And this is an unfavorable ratio between bad bacteria and good bacteria. And one thing we tend to know about bad bacteria is it massively feeds off sugar. So you will often find with like the Candida diet, which is a yeast overgrowth in the gut, people are often told to avoid most carbohydrates and a lot of sugar because that is really what that gut bacteria feeds on. And there is some research to suggest that the craving for sugar increases via this bad bacteria in here. So if you've got someone who's largely overweight, very unhealthy, their cravings for sugar could potentially be a lot more than the next person who isn't overweight and as unhealthy, let's say. Okay, so let's get into the important stuff. So in your gut, you have your small intestine, your large intestine. Your small intestine is actually the biggest surface area. It's thinner in a tube, but it's actually much longer. If you actually spread it out, all its folds and creases, it would be like 4 tennis courts. It's basically folded like a Viennetta ice cream, if you know what that is, layer upon layer upon layer to increase its surface area, because this is where it really starts to absorb the nutrients from our food. And we have things called villi or microvilli, and they're basically like hairs. And one of their jobs is start to absorb these nutrients. Now, if we have a lot of bad bacteria, we get a pathogen or a parasite in our gut. In between these villi, we have things called tight junctions. And these tight junctions is where we let food, bacteria, or things pass from our gut into our body. So you can really look at your gut as your last line of defense between the outside world. Once things pass through your gut, they are into your body, they're into your system. So some people do actually class their gut as outside their body. Sounds odd, but in terms of things that actually get into your bloodstream or your lymphatic system, that kind of makes sense. And problems can arise here that if by a dysbiosis, a parasite, bad diet, alcohol, smoking, poor life choices, these tight junctions, which only allow maybe one particle size things to cross that barrier, start to widen and they get broken down. And once they widen, things start to get in which either aren't fully digested or do not belong in our body, like a bacteria or a pathogen, and they cross over into our body. Now we're in problems. Now our body is like, what is that in my body? We need to create an autoimmune response. And this is where our body kind of attacks this thing, but vicariously, it often attacks ourselves as well. So this is where things like type 1 diabetes can come later in life. Not everyone's born with type 1 diabetes. It can come from this. Arthritis, psoriasis, even diseases like multiple sclerosis can come from permeable gut or leaky gut is what the name of this is, where these junctions start to open up. And when foods come out, get through, and pathogens, whatever it may be, and they shouldn't be there, the body goes, what is that? Attack, attack, attack. And often, like I say, it will attack the body at the same time. Not intentionally. This could be because let's say, I'm going to pull something out of the air. This isn't necessarily true. Just take it as an example. Let's say whey protein gets through your gut barrier, gets through your tight junctions, which have been widened. It's not fully digested. It goes in, and the body goes, "What is that?" Attack that, and it attacks that by how it recognizes it. But let's say not only does it recognize that whey protein, it also recognizes certain parts of your body in the same manner. So you attack that whey protein, but then you attack your pancreas as well. And you actually attack your beta cells in your pancreas. And they are what works with insulin. I'm trying to keep this real simple. And that is how you would end up getting type 1 diabetes. And there's a whole host of things that go on here. Okay, let's stop for a second. Okay, quick overview of what we've just gone from. When we were talking about our gut or our digestive system, we're talking everything from our mouth to our anus. We have talked about how the gut has its own enteric nervous system, interacts with the brain, serotonin, happy hormones. We've talked about the villi, the hairs that are in your gut, and how your gut is overlapped to increase its surface area. We've talked about the tight junctions when the environment is not very favorable in the gut due to a parasite that you've picked up, bad bacteria, dysbiosis, a bad balance between good and bad bacteria. These junctions open up and things that shouldn't be getting into our bloodstream or our lymphatic system start to get in there. Lymphatic system, if you are unsure, is basically the way that the body transports fluids around the body, which isn't in the bloodstream. Eventually, it often goes into the bloodstream. Okay, so we're up to speed and we've started to kind of understand why it's important to keep a good microbiome, kind of population balance of gut bacteria, because then we can keep our gut permeability, those tight junctions, nice and tight, and we can look after them and we can reduce the chances of having autoimmune issues or diseases or an overgrowth of bacteria, sugar cravings, reduce our serotonin levels, a whole multitude of issues that we are avoiding. So how do we look after our gut microbiome and keep our gut healthy? Now, you know about probiotics and these drinks and stuff, sure, but let's just start with the simple stuff. A varied, good diet. Things that your mum told you when you were growing up actually ring true, like eat your veg. Very, very important. Vegetables, obviously they come with fiber, which does a whole host of things in your body. It doesn't just pass in one end, one out the other. It does a lot of things while it's in there, particularly in your colon. But also, these foods, particularly skins of fruit and vegetables, they kind of hold things like polyphenols. Now, trying to keep this very simple, they basically can kill off bad and good bacteria. And in previous times when you'd go to the supermarket, and well, now when you go to the supermarket, it doesn't matter what the season is, you can pretty much get the food that you want because it comes from Spain or it comes from somewhere else where they're in a different time zone and they can still grow those foods. But in years gone by when food wasn't as readily available and we would harvest the land, as the seasons change, so would our crops. And this would mean we would get a diverse range of polyphenols, fibers and foods, and these would populate and kill off our gut bacteria. Kind of like turning over the land with farming. And it would kind of keep a balance on things. Sure, it would kill some bad bacteria, but it would also kill some good bacteria. But providing we were eating a good diet with not tons of just junk food and alcohol and stuff like that, it allowed us to keep a good population in our gut. So what is the difference between probiotics and prebiotics? Probiotics are actually the strains of bacteria that you have in your gut. There are some common ones that you will see, which I really can't pronounce, like acidophilus, and they're very, very hard to pronounce, so I'm not even going to try and massacre them. And for the want of this video, it doesn't really matter. But this is what probiotics are doing. Now, depending on the delivery system and the type of probiotics you have, remember, they've got to make it past your acid in your stomach. So it depends on this is why in previous years gone by, it was like, do the yogurts really make it past your gut bacteria? Or do they really make it past your stomach acid and into your gut? So the delivery system is important, as well as the type of bacteria you're putting into your body. Now, prebiotics are food for gut bacteria, and what they do is they help feed the gut bacteria that you currently have in there. But underlying, and encompassing all of this is the choices you make in your life. It's far more important. Much like an exercise a day is not going to save a bad diet, eating a pre or probiotic is not going to save a poor life choices and poor diet either. But that is the difference between a pre and a probiotic. So it's become very clear that our gut is very important when it comes to immunity. And obviously that's quite integral with what's going on in the world right now. So having a healthy gut more now than ever is really quite crucial. Another thing to note is the way in which you're born can actually impact your gut bacteria. So when you are first born, if you are born naturally, your first population of gut bacteria, because you're born open-mouthed, comes from the vaginal canal from your mum. And that's when you get your first population of your gut bacteria. And it's been shown that babies that are born by C-section actually have a different microbiome to babies that are born naturally. The babies that are born by C-section tend to have a gut bacteria which is more suited to the hospital environment. What I did read on research though is roughly at the year mark, baby's gut microbiome seems to have balanced out. Whether this is going to cause potential issues later in life, no one really knows. There's so much still to be understood about the gut. It's constantly being researched. But what I will explain, like everything in life, genetics loads the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger. I believe that every single one of us is predisposed to something. Whether it's you have hypertension or heart attacks or whatever in your lifestyle, every one of us, nearly every one of us, will be predisposed to a certain illness or ailment. But our lifestyle is what pulls the trigger. So if we look after our bodies, we look after our health, our stress and everything, the chances of these ailments, diseases, illnesses coming to fruition is greatly diminished. I can't promise that it will never come up because I can't say that in camera and be truthful. But I am extremely confident that it would massively reduce the risk of you getting one of these illnesses in life. And also, I always come back around to this with our training and with our nutrition and stuff like that. We're just trying to make ourselves harder to kill. And if you want to make yourself harder to kill, one way to do that is to look after your gut. Whether it's fighting off infections, whether it's your immunity, or whether it's your ability to recover from a serious illness. Gut is going to be something that comes into play with that. Last thing I will touch on, actually, people often talk about antibiotics. Antibiotics, depending on the strain, will kill gut bacteria, good and bad. So it's extremely important while and after you take probiotics that you have a very good diet, and we'll talk to a specialist on this, but you may want to, I'm not going to prescribe this, you may want to look at taking a pre or a probiotic, but talk to your practitioner before you do that, because everybody's case is different, and there are some amazing gut specialists out there now that can do all kinds of weird and wonderful tests on your gut from your saliva and also from your poo. So yeah, I hope that clears up. I know it's quite long, and hopefully I made it in a way that was understandable for you guys without using abbreviations and going into the really complicated long words that are hard to pronounce, which I feel as soon as I say them, I just see people's eyes glaze over and it maybe doesn't have the same impact. But there you go. There's some of the roles of your gut, why it's important, how it can impact autoimmune diseases and how we can look after our gut, as well as a little bit of bonus things on antibiotics and the way in which you were born. Hope that helps, guys. Thank you.